What up, guys? Dr. Vic, and you're listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast. Excited that you're here. Been away for a little bit. They only had me, once in the last month? Had a lot going on, and it was just one of those things where, this life got in there, but at least we had the interviews that we've been sharing. I'm back here, ready to rock, and excited to be back here with you guys. Been doing a lot of time thinking, been doing a lot of time just refreshing mind and looking at. Sometimes I do this where I'll look at like everything that I do, what's the purpose as to why it's still fulfilling that and so forth. And so the mindful experiment has been such a great success for me to where, we've been doing this for over 3 years and we've gained so much traction. Just this week, we were in the top 70 in mental health in Thailand. So I appreciate those who are listening in Thailand. Thank you for your continued support. As a lot of times out there, we're ranking up. So one time we got all the way up into the top 50 in mental health. So excited to be sharing that and being refreshed, jotting down some new ideas and some content I want to share with y'all. One of the things is today what I wanted to share. And it's been a concept that I've been, I was talking to a client about this and a couple of patients, and it was interesting. It just kept coming up. And I'm like, you know what? I got to bring this up. I've talked about this in different aspects, but I'm like, I didn't get into this deep enough. And it's one of those things where in life, right? So many times we focus on the external world. There's so many times where we look at the external world and expect that to change our internal world, right? And it was one of these things where I started looking and I said, you know what? I was talking to this one person and I said, no matter what happens in your life, everything is in your internal world. Like once we learn that and really understand that it's all the internal world that's creating the outer, we'll shift our focus. Because some people say, oh, doc, heard that. Yep, that's great. Okay. But then I look at the actions and words and their direction of energy of where they're going, and it's outward. It's not inward, it's outward. And so then I'm going, you don't really get it then. Oh, yeah, I do. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Well, let's take a step back. Look at your actions. Let's look at what you've been doing. Where's your focus? Where's your energy going? Look at how you're not focusing inward. You're focusing outward. It's the same thing like this. Somebody will say, oh, I get, chiropractic and health. I know working out's great and nutrition and all that. It all works. It's all good for you. Yeah. Why aren't you an example of it then? Right? Putting money where your mouth is, right? Why aren't you an example of that? If you know it works, then you're going to do it no matter what. It's like a patient was asking me, I said, we're talking about words. She's actually, it was about words and things along that nature. And she's reading my book and she's like, do you really believe that words create your reality? And this is the same thing for like chiropractors get when we say, well, I believe in chiropractic. Well, chiropractic is a science. It's not a belief system. Saying words create your reality is actually a science. It's not a belief system. And the reason why I say it like that, I'll say, no, I don't believe. I know there's a difference. There's a science behind it. And the reason why is that when you know something, you're going to do that. Okay. When you know and believe and believe, there goes that word, but to knowing that, and I don't even like saying knowing because people know things, but they don't do it. Right. So you know that to work and also know that it's going to do that for you. Like you're inspired with the things that you know. Maybe that's a better word. Inspired by the things you know. Because how many times we live in an informational era. So if knowing was it, then everybody would be there. But we're not. So there has to be an inspiration, there has to be a connection and things like that. And there's other things I won't get into in this podcast that tie into that also, because you can say, well, I love that, but that's someone else's idea and their vision, not yours. So you like it, you go with it for a little bit. It's not you disconnect. And that's why those things don't work. And I've done that many times in my life. But there's this principle that, when you know something truly deep down, then you're going to implement that into your life because you know that it works. You know that it's going to work. And why would you do something that doesn't work or don't want to work, right? Like getting in shape. Why are you know what you need to do to get in shape. But do you really care about getting in shape? Not really. It's not a value to you. Because if it is, you're going to do the action steps to get there, right? And so kind of getting tailored away from the topic today, but it's just trying to tie this all together. So it's your inner world of where everything exists. So I want to explain this in a realm where if you have chaos within you, right? If you see, so here's an example. How does the inner world dictate the outer world, Doc? Tell me about it. Well, let's look into the world. What's your perspective of the world? How do you see the world? Do you like what you see in the world? Do you have a lot of fear, worry? Do you have a lot of anger? How do you see people when you're out there? How do you react when people drive? These are all things that are actually happening, are all cue points of knowing where you are. Hence, I didn't say where they are, where you are. See the difference? See, when someone cuts you off on the road, how do you feel about that? Right? If someone's driving slow in a lane and you're in the left lane of the highway, how do you feel about that? How do you react? Okay. When you get triggered for no reason, or there is a reason, but you feel like there's no reason, and you just get mad and you blame the other person, there's lessons there that we can learn. Those are cues. You see, your inner world is really all about knowing, and where you know your inner world is by the triggers that affect you. Right. So, like for me, I get triggered pretty easily when people are suppressing others, suppressing information, suppressing a society. Something like COVID, not getting all the information out there, right? Or you see it on Facebook. You see it on Facebook now with fact checkers, right? When no one ever asked who are those fact checkers, they just trust the fact checkers, and it's like, come on, people. And there's things that you look at this stuff, and that's what triggers me. And then I look and say, well, why does that matter to me? Why does that trigger me? Oh, that's your purpose. You don't want to, but why does it really bother me? You ever ask the question to yourself, why does this really get to me? Or why do I get a certain way? When you ask the question, you cannot look outside yourself. Right? Let's think about this in marriage. Oh, husband, whatever, blah, 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 wife, blah, 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 whatever. There's so many of those, right? Oh, I'm this way because of them. No, you're not. Ask the question why. Don't put it on someone else. Or sometimes I'll hear this. Patient will be like, I want to start care. I really do. I just have kids, and it's just they take up a lot of my time, so I don't have time for myself. Don't use your kids as a crutch. Ask yourself why you're doing that. Because you're not valuable enough. You don't have enough self-worth for yourself to take care of yourself. That's really the more of the truth. Let's have that dialogue. Don't blame it on someone else. And so a lot of times in our life, we're blaming other things for excuses and reasons of not really having faith in ourselves. Again, inner world creates outer world, right? So how can low self-worth do that? Well, you're not going to take care of yourself. You're not going to be a top priority. You're not going to do the things you enjoy or do the things that really matter to you because you really don't think you're worthy of it. And so that's going to create your outer world. Okay. It's like someone I was talking with and they want to do all these things in the world, but yet they allow so many different reasons of why they can't get there. Or I had another person who was talking about like somebody who saw someone with Botox, and they're like, oh my God, look how young they look. They got their face lifted a little bit. They look so young. And I go, well, you can do that just by taking care of your health. And if don't take this the wrong way, people, but it's just the way I look at things. And I always say, like, if you don't like your external self and you have to change that to feel better, that means you don't love your internal self truly, 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 deep down. Now, it may not be at the surface of that, but deep down, there's something. Because love is acceptance. Like for me, I love who I am. And the more I age, I'm going to appreciate that process because it's part of the process, right? And if I didn't love myself, then I have to change myself to try to make myself feel good so I can feel better about myself. And it's those kind of concepts where I've said this at a young age. This is not something it was weird. When I was younger, I used to say stuff like that, where I had a friend who wanted to get, implants at one time. And I said, why do that? It's going to change who you are. Well, I want to be feeling more of this. Well, then just feel that way. Well, no, because who taught you that? You don't need to have that in order to have this. That's backwards. I was like, you just be you. You already have that in you. You just got to trust and believe in yourself. And once you have that belief, who cares about that? Because your external body does not determine your internal world. Your external world does not determine your internal world. So there's a lot of things that when we look at this perspective, where it comes down to these things, and we can go in many different directions. If you feel like you're always on the go and you're always things are never calm and things are never relaxed and you just can never take a moment for yourself, that's because internally you don't have that. Your mind is all over the place. It's scattered. It's not centered. Because if a mind's centered, then the life's going to be centered. Things are going to be organized. Things are going to be efficient, right? It may look a little chaotic to others, but they're going to be blown away how you get everything done and keep everything all together because the mind is centered. So you have to understand this. This is what intrigued me about mindset. And this is why I got into the mind. I wanted to understand that because when I was younger, what I realized was my room was always dirty when I was stressed. It just was. When I had a lot going on, or not a lot going on, I've always had stuff going on. But when my mind was stressed, when I was stressed out, when I had a lot happening emotionally, my room would be dirty and I can care less about living there. And what it was my mind was chaotic. So my world had to look that way. So it was in sync with everything. And then I started to realize, why were there times I had spans of moments where my room was clean? I keep my room clean. I didn't understand. I didn't have clothes all over the place. It was all clean. I would like to have it nice and organized. It was all like being nice and tidy and clean. It made me feel good. It was weird. Because it didn't happen often. And it was one of those things that I started to realize I was calmer. I said, wow. And I started saying to my friends, I remember I was like, hey, if your room's dirty, your mind's not balanced. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, just telling you. As I got older and I started working with, and I became a chiropractor, started working as a pediatric chiropractor, working with a lot of kids. I remember parents would complain, oh, they don't ever clean up the room. They don't ever do this. And then if the child was a patient, I get to know them. And I say, hey, let me ask you a question. When you're calm, are you more like feeling like you're stressed? You have a lot of things going on in your mind, a lot of emotional stuff. And I would build a little rapport with some of them. And some of them would open up and they'd be like, yeah, I do. And I'd be like, okay, do you ever notice that when you're not like that, your room's clean? And they're like, maybe. And so I'm like, just think about it. And then, months later they come back and if we're having a conversation, they'll be like, you know what? The mom's like, man, the room's been clean for like the last week. I don't know, 2 weeks. What's going on? And then of course I'd be like, how are things? Good. I've been doing good. I'm feeling good. Not less stressed. Things are good. And I'd be like, that's probably why. And so it's one of the things where, again, internal world, external world. My wife and I know this very well. When we have a lot going on and we're stressed, we don't need to know when we're stressed. We just look at our house. It'll tell us, how are we living every single day? And if we're living in a realm where I have clothes all over the place and stuff like that, it's chaos. And then I go, we're chaotic. We need to correct that. And that's going to correct everything else. This happens in business. When you look at business, how are you centered in yourself with business? Everything in business is a reflection of you and what you do. So if you're not centered in your mind and energy in business, well, then the business becomes chaotic and that's all over the place kind of a thing too. This trickles in every aspect of your life. And so the key factor is how to tame and calm the inner world. That's the thing you want to focus on. Become aware. Awareness solves 90% of the problem. It's 80% of the problem, whatever you want to call it. It's half of the, let's say go with half. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out here. Let's say it's half of the solution. It's just being aware, just knowing that it's there, right? Being in tune with yourself. That changes the ball game because then from there, you can now start to create a solution and you can start putting that in action. So remember this. Look at your life as an observer because it's only giving you access to understand what's going on internally. And the more you start to shift your perspective that way, the more you're going to change your life. You're going to create more of it is that what you desire. That's what I got for you guys today. As always, appreciate you being on. If you liked the podcast, please click like, share a review for us. It really helps us get out there. And also, if you've been a follower and subscribed for so long, thank you so much. And if you found this to be inspirational in some way, shape, or form, please pay it forward. Do a favor, help someone out to get inspired just like you were. Appreciate you as always. And I'll see you all next week.